Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, Supply Chain Insights, the podcast for your supply chain leader who is on the go and wants to be in the know. And now, your host, Lora Cecere.
Today it gives me great pleasure to interview Lora Bismeyer. Lora is driving digitalization at Corning. Lora, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Laura.
Tell the group a little bit about yourself.
So I've been with Corning quite a while, actually. I'm kind of a Corning career person. I did a little stint at GE and IBM prior, spent a little time in the Peace Corps in Central Africa, and then came back and joined Corning 24 years ago.
Well, and you're a great leader. Corning's certainly lucky to have you. And,
Thank you.
I loved having you at the Global Summit. What were your ahas from the summit? What's on the top of your list to get going as you go home?
I think my aha kind of struck me this morning, actually, with the two speakers that we had earlier in the day today. I was actually very fervently texting with several of my coworkers and colleagues through it, and I was getting chills thinking about some of the things that we could do with the learnings. I think my biggest one was really around the fact that we've been talking about digitalization and digitalization of the supply chain and trying to teach the organization what digitalization means and why it's important and the speed of which this change is coming at us and why it's important for Corning. And we've known all along we really need to tie it to the business value. But what was helpful this morning is that we had two tremendous speakers who spoke to their journeys in this space, who actually converted it the other way around. They transformed the order of the words, and that made a big difference for me. So they were talking about transformation with digital enablement. So it was more about the transformation being important, this transformation of these supply chains, being able to bring speed, being able to bring clarity, being able to bring visibility to your supply chain as enabled by digitalization or digital technologies versus it being about the digitalization. The intent that we had at Corning was never to be about the digitalization. It was always to be about the transformation. And we were struggling with struggling with how to say that. That big aha this morning for me was I thought they did a really nice job in their stories this morning in how they transformed with digital enablement.
It's sort of a catch-22 because we wouldn't be able to drive new outcomes if we didn't have such a wealth of great and new and promising technology that we've got to learn about and we've got to change our mind. But, I deliberately picked those case studies because it was about transforming the business for new outcomes versus technology for the sake of technology. And so often I see companies that are sort of on this digital train because it's cool and it's almost hype. And, remember I asked the people to describe what digital was, and we had as many different definitions as we have people in the room, right?
Yeah.
So that was my goal. And so as you go back and you think about that, how will you get started?
So I think we have good stories down on paper now. What we have to do is do the transposition. Right? We've got businesses who are working on building out their roadmaps in this space, and we've talked a lot about how will they digitize or how will they bring digital technologies in. I think we can do more, spend more time talking about the problems that they're solving. There's the same old problems that we've been trying to solve in supply chain for a long time. We just have new ways of solving them now, which, and your point, another aha for me, is that push of there might be a transitional step that we have to take where we take these not so great processes and we digitize them or add more digital capability into that space. But we also need to make sure that we're pausing long enough and taking the opportunities to consider how do you take that possibility and digitize it, right? Like talk about the problem and then bring the digital capabilities to it. So how do you transpose that dialogue? So spending more time with those business guys, talking about the challenges they're facing, and then bringing the digital technology in, I think will be better.
Snyder and Mars were two case studies I deliberately picked, right? Mm-hmm. Because Mars was really started by the Mars family who really wanted to drive new outcomes. And so they hired a change agent, and they took an organization where IT and line of business didn't work very well, and they tried to drive outcomes. And so they've really struggled with this whole concept.
Mm-hmm.
And then Schneider, with Annette Clayton and Murad's leadership, have been on this journey for a while, and they started the SCUBA teams to really focus on solving business problems that were important. So I think that is an important concept, and I'm so excited that you can share that. Now, one of the things that we talked about in the conference was learning to unlearn. How will you start that journey?
So I would say that we've been on that journey for a little while. I think part of the reason I was brought into the organization was to help the Global Supply Management Organization do that, unlearn some of the learned. Cheryl Capps, my boss, she's a phenomenal visionary and has really been leading the charge in the change that we've seen happening in Corning and enabling these great outcomes. So I think for me, the challenge in this space of unlearning is being okay with making people uncomfortable. Instead of trying to make them comfortable with the change, I think to push the creativity buttons, you really have to let people be a little uncomfortable. So, we challenge them. We put some crazy stuff in front of them, the skits and the role plays and the stories and the podcast, the mini podcasts that we do and the videos that we encourage and the joking and the fun part of it, right? To bring some discomfort and some comfort in the same space and then bring them through the change. I get on a bit of a pedestal when I start talking about change management, because in Corning, when we think about change management, we have these great templates and spreadsheets that help us work out a change management plan that lays on top of the project. And there's just so much change coming and the speed with which we need to change. We really just need a change culture. We need to enable the culture to embrace the change.
Well, I'd love you to elaborate on some of the techniques they use, because I don't think many people are driving digital with as much fun. I mean, from Van doing a song to, some of the videos you've done to, the podcast. Tell the group a little bit about how you're really driving awareness and experiential learning in a fun way.
So we tried to take terminology that people understand, like the digital thread, and then through fun play, and we used a Harry Potter role play skit that we did on top of it, where we got different members of the leadership team to engage in it, and then had the audience just roaring and laughing, but also at the same time learning about the fact that they shouldn't be keying from one system into another. It should be a continuous digital thread. And if they're keying in one system and then keying the same thing in another system, we need to be looking at how we connect those so that information is flowing from one single set of truth. And because every time you key, have the possibility, and more often than not, you change that truth.
Absolutely. Whether it's error or bias, your videos and your podcast, and I just think your awareness of what you're trying to do is really visionary, and I give you real kudos for that, because so many times people make these decks that are slide decks that have all these buzzwords and lack definition, and they don't spend the time on the human element that I think you're doing. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you.
Any insights for others about how to do that well?
Well, one, I'm very fortunate in having a great partner like Dina, and also having a team of people who trust to be a little silly in front of the group, right? And a leadership who values that fun side of the whole change management aspect, or the change embracing aspect. And because of that, I always get time on the agendas, right? They could be not supporting me. I could be getting cut off of those agendas, or they could be asking somebody else to come and present. But they're not. And so we're continuing to keep that fun aspect. We have plenty of the other type of materials going too, plenty of the presentations, and on some of the social media internal to Corning, we do a lot of definition, a lot of one-pagers, a lot of glossaries, in addition to the videos and the podcasts, etc.
Well, change takes a village.
It does.
And as you think about consultants and technologists, and how can they help you?
One, join in the fun, right? Bring some fun and excitement and energy to the space. We love it when they're able to match our energy. That's always helpful. Bring some of we have a lot of different ideas and a lot of different types of mindset. We bring that innovation component. Corning's heavily an innovation company, and we're able to bring that into the supply chain space. But, it's really nice to have those people who will push you a little bit to the edge. You can bring an outside consultant in who can tell you the crazy story, the drones that can do the single shot and take somebody, those kind of scary technology things that, you don't want to actually do internally. And so it's nice to have them bring that little seed, or put the pea under the mattress, so to speak, as in the Princess and the Pea story, and just that grain of sand and the gums, or, whatever that is, to make it just a little uncomfortable. They can stretch into that uncomfortable space better than we can internally. And then we can take the internal energy and we can build on that discomfort.
Super. Well, anything you want to close with from the conference or your experience for the audience?
Yeah, actually, it's been a phenomenal 2 days, 3 days really, because I came for the pre, and it's been another amazing year. I'm looking forward to see. I don't know how you're going to top it next year, but I'm sure you will. And I look forward to the experience.
Well, good. Thank you so much for joining us. You're a great speaker, and we look forward to really seeing your progress.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
This is Lora with Straight Talk from Supply Chain Insights. Until next time, thank you.